Well, social workers got involved in climate change primarily as responding to needs. So, like, for example, in Dadaab camp in Kenya, social workers, you'll find them there, but nobody really thinks about them as social workers. They're seen as humanitarian aid workers. They're seen as any kind of workers but social workers, because most people think, oh, they deal with children and families and older people, and they don't move out. But social workers go into communities to help them and empower them. They start from a value-laden perspective, which is about, we're after social justice, making sure people get their rights. So they assess needs in the immediate aftermath of a disaster. So drought, flooding, social workers are there, and they assess needs, and then they try and coordinate the delivery of services based on their assessment of their needs, and they link up with different agencies to make sure that people get what they want and need, and they also help them in the delivery of food, clothing, medicine, resettling people into temporary accommodation. They also counsel people, especially those who have lost loved ones in a disaster, and then they also help reunite families, especially children, so they don't lose their work with children and families. That also happens. And then as community workers, so social workers, the problem with social work, it's a huge, huge discipline, and it varies across the world. Like, you can find social work in 80 countries in the world. This is professional level social work, not just informal caring, but professional social work. And they do such a variety of work. People think, oh, what's a social worker? What do they do? But as community development workers, after a disaster, they help people develop their communities to try and sort out, well, what do we want to do? What do we want to change? What can we engage in prevention? How do we prevent disasters from happening, or how do we mitigate the risks, which is why my institute is Hazard, Risk and Resilience. Right. So we try to develop resilience to make people strong, to help them get their rights, what they're entitled to, because we also deal primarily with poor people, and of course they have the worst impact of any disaster, including climate change, is always worse for poor people. So we advocate for them, and we help them do everything that they can to get the resources that they need. Right. So immediately after a disaster happens through to the future. So for example, I was interested, you were talking to someone in Sri Lanka. Well, wearing my Durham University hat, we actually have what we call a Project Durham Sri Lanka, where we've been building schools now since 2005 in Sri Lanka for preschool children, and now we're moving up as they're aging. You know, we're moving up the educational ladder, and we're monitoring this and trying to find what works best. And our model is very empowering because it's aimed at developing capacity. And
so you provide the links in many ways.
We're the
links between the various aid organisations working in the aftermath of any disaster.
Yeah, and we're good brokers. We broker the kind of like formal governments. We work with governments. We work with other NGOs. We work with the people. So we straddle from what we call the macro level to the micro level.
When you say,
we change policies as well.
When you say we, I mean social workers, professional social workers working in the country in which the disaster takes place, or are they flown in from elsewhere?
Some are.
So there's a mixture of the two.
And we work, the model, wearing my International Association of Schools of Social Work hat, our model is based on, we listen to what people say in the community, so it's bottom up, and we say, what do you want, what do you need, how do we get it together for you? We're sensitive to traditions, cultures, linguistic differences, religion. We have all of this, and we link up with local partners. So all of our work is partnership-based. We do not do it otherwise.
Right. So do you have a kind of an emergency relief team of social workers who will fly into a country, link up with the local social workers?
Well, we don't fly in. No, we ask people. We get in touch with them in the immediate aftermath and say, what do you need? So, for example, in Christchurch, which is not climate change, but it was a disaster that illustrates what's happening. People there said, we don't want any more social workers coming in. We got plenty of them, but the ones we have here are really exhausted. What can you do to help us? And I came up with the virtual helpline so that people can just ring us and talk to us. which a lot of people just want to do. They want to get lots of things off their chest.
Just people who might have lost homes, lost family.
Everything, yeah. There's after each disaster, people who've lost everything, or even a lot, but to them is everything, is, you know, not a lot, but to them is everything. They go through a grieving process. So social workers help them come to terms with, you know, grieving, accepting loss, moving on, which is really important. That's the resilience.
So you're there in the long term, the immediate aftermath, and the rebuilding process.
And that was where the International Association of Schools of Social Work was really keen to develop long-term interventions, because a lot of NGOs and a lot of humanitarian aid work is 2 to 6 months and they're gone. So we've been there now. IASSW, that's the Association of Schools of Social Work, has been in Sri Lanka, for example, since 2005.